Now, when we read this question and look at it, these, I think, qualify as looking the most scary of all the questions so far that we've had. There's a lot of writing in this question. It's telling you something about alpha, something about beta. We know that cos of alpha is in quadrant 3, and it's equal to negative 3 over 5. And sine of beta is 1/3 and in quadrant 2. And we have to find the exact value of sine of alpha plus beta. So on first looking at this, this looks like a lot of information. I give a name to these kind of questions. I call them double triangle questions, because like we've seen before with a lot of questions involving quadrants and sine and cos, that we can find them by drawing a triangle in that quadrant, and then we get a lot more information from that. All this question is it tells you one angle in one quadrant and another angle in another quadrant. And so if we draw a triangle for alpha and we draw a triangle for beta, we're going to be able to figure out everything that we can. So alpha's in quadrant 3. So I draw a triangle in quadrant 3. And I know that cos of alpha is 3 over 5. So the adjacent side will be 3. The hypotenuse will be 5. You can add the negative if you like to, but when I'm drawing a triangle, I'm just thinking about lengths. So if that length is 3 and that length is 5, recognize this triangle. 3, 4, 5. So there's our alpha triangle, and this angle right here is actually the reference angle for alpha. Similarly, beta is going to be in quadrant 2. So I draw it in quadrant 2. I know that sine of beta is 1/3. So the opposite side is 1. Hypotenuse 3. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And you will get this side as root 8. And this would be the reference angle for beta. So we already knew that cos of alpha was negative 3 over 5. But now we also know what sine of alpha is. Sine of alpha, opposite over hypotenuse, and because it's in quadrant 3, it'll be negative as well. And we already knew that sine of beta was 1/3, and now we can say that cos of beta is root 8 over 3, and because it's in quadrant 2, it's negative. So in this question, we want to find sine alpha plus beta. And according to the formula, that's sine alpha cos beta plus cos alpha sine beta. And we just did a bunch of calculations here from our two triangles. So what I want you to do is I want you to do the next step and plug in the numbers, because there's a mistake that about 50% of people make the first time they do this question. So every time I do it, I get you to try it. I do a survey, and I'll give you the results. I won't say who got it right and who got it wrong, but I'd rather you make the mistake now, well, on the first time you're doing it, so you don't make that mistake on the quiz, so you don't make that mistake on the test. So I want you to, in pencil, in case you make the mistake, you can erase it, write down the next step, and then I'll come around and check the results. Okay, the results are in. Not quite 50% this year. There were 11 people who did it correct and 8 people who made the common mistake. So almost 50%. So what is the common mistake is when you see these numbers, the negative 3/5, the negative 4/5, the 1/3, and the negative 8/3, is to plug these values in just for the angle. But you can see here when I write sine of alpha is equal to negative 4/5. So I substitute that whole value in and say sine of alpha is negative 4/5, and I don't need to write sine again. So the common mistake is when people write sine of negative 4/5, then cos of negative 8 pi over 3. You just need to write the values. Negative root 8 over 3 plus cos of alpha, negative 3 over 5, and sine of beta was 1 over 3. So you just need to write the values in. So if you made that mistake this time, then you're going to make sure that you don't make that mistake when we do the quiz. And if you make the mistake again when you do the quiz, you'll make sure you don't make it again when we do the test. And if you make the mistake again when we do the test, then you want to make sure you don't make it the mistake on the exam. So now we can multiply things through. We're going to get positive root 4 root 8 over 15 plus a negative 3 over 15. So our final answer will be 4 root 8 minus 3 all over 15. And the questions you can do for this one are number 8 and 13.